Hello everyone, it's Hannah here from Virtually Fluent. Today we're going to talk about a really important pronunciation topic to help you sound a little bit more fluent and native in English. And this is connected speech. Super important for getting that rhythm, that flow when we're speaking in English. Today we'll run through the rules, a little bit of theory because there is theory behind English pronunciation. You'll see plenty of examples and activities, and hopefully you can use connected speech in your English conversation. My name is Hannah. Now, when I said this phrase, my name is Hannah, it sounded a little bit like my, nay, Ms. Hannah. That Ms. is connected. It sounds like a totally different thing to what is actually written down on the paper. This is a perfect example of connected speech. Now that is the most common one where we push consonants onto the vowels of the next word. That's called catenation, but we do have some other techniques too. These are assimilation, liaison, and elision, and these are really common in English conversation. So assimilation is when we change a particular sound at the end of a word so that it can easily connect onto the next word. This is most common when we have two very similar sounding consonants at the end of one word and the beginning of a next. The next one is liaison, and this is when we insert an extra sound. And this is most common when we have two vowels next to each other. One word ends in a vowel and the next word starts in a vowel. And our final technique is elision, which is when we completely eliminate a sound simply because it requires us to move the mouth too much. This is most common with the consonants H, T, and D. So let's take a look at some of these rules and some examples. And we'll start with assimilation, changing a sound. So if one word ends in T and the next word starts in M, B, or P, we basically eliminate that T sound and try to insert a P instead. For example, best man. It's way too complicated. We want to insert a P in there instead. Best man. Now, we don't necessarily say best man. We don't want to over-exaggerate. The idea is that our mouth moves into the position of the letter P, but we don't actually say that sound. So best man, best man. The same as sit back or pot plant. You can see my mouth moves into that P position at the end of that first word. Now, if the T is followed by a K or a G, we want to go straight for that K sound. For example, that cake or fat girl. Now, if the word ends in D and our next letter is M, B, or P, we move to a B sound because it's a little bit closer to the D mouth position. For example, bad pain, good morning, bad boy. And if the D is followed by a K or a G, we go for that G sound instead. Bad girl, cold call. If our first word ends in N and our next word begins in M, B, or P, we change it to the M sound. For example, we don't want to say action planning, we change it to a M. Action planning, con man, sunbathe. And if the N is followed by a K or a G, we actually change it to that sound, which is that far back sound, quite difficult in English. For example, action group or Roman candle. The next one is when an S is followed by a sh sound. We basically eliminate that S. We don't really want it. We convert it immediately into that sh. Bus shelter, not bus shelter, bus shelter. And if it's a Z followed by the sh sound, we change it to the zh, television. It's that zh sound. For example, cheese shop becomes cheese shop, cheese shop. A little bit easier to say. The next one we're going to look at is liaison, and this is where we insert some extra sounds. So I'm going to say Asia and Africa are continents. You can hear it's nice and flowing, lots of connected speech. To avoid sounding a bit like a robot, what I've actually done is inserted an extra R. Asia and Africa are continents. We don't want to sound like a robot. Asia and Africa are consonants, it's also not very nice on the ear. So when it tends to end or begin in an a or an sound, that schwa, then we tend to use the extra r, this intruding r. Now let's take the example, who is that? Who is that? In between who and is, you can hear this extra w sound. Who is that? So if there's two connecting vowel sounds or an oo or an you tend to hear the w being inserted. And our final example is this is the end. Again, you can hear an extra y in here. This is the end. And when our final sounds tend to be I, E or A, then we would have this extra Y. So those are the liaison sounds, so we introduce extra letters. We've got that R, the W and the Y being inserted. And our final example is elision, and this is where we simply eliminate a sound because it's too complicated to say, we don't want to overpronounce. For example, he passed his exam. Here we wouldn't say he passed his exam, we would eliminate that H. He passed his exam. This only tends to happen when the word beginning with H is a pronoun, because if it's a really important word like a noun or an adjective, we obviously don't want to eliminate the H. So his is her. For example, she did a homework. Here, the homework, because it's a noun, does need that H sound, but the pronoun her can eliminate the H. Here's another example. The next day, he went home. Here, we don't want the T at the end of next. So T at the end of a word is another example of when we do not pronounce the letter. We're simply too lazy to say it all in English. And sometimes elision can happen inside one particular word. For example, you don't say chocolate. We would just say chocolate. So again, we have eliminated that sound in the middle of the word. Chocolate, chocolate. Elision is happening inside the word. So all of these tools can hopefully help you speak a little bit more fluently in English, have that connected speech feeling in your English conversation. If you learned something new today, please go ahead and give today's video a like, and you can also subscribe to my YouTube channel for lots more videos just like this one with English pronunciation, but also vocabulary, grammar, and using English in everyday life and life here in the UK, British culture videos. You can also find me across all social media channels. I've left all those links in the description below so you can access those. I post loads of free content on a daily basis, so definitely check those out. This is Hannah from Virtually Fluent, bringing English to life.